Embark on a career journey that transcends boundaries and impacts communities. Join the state of Nebraska, where innovation meets purpose and your contributions shape the future. As a valued member of our team, discover a broad range of opportunities spanning from public service to cutting-edge technology. Be a part of something bigger, where your skills make a difference, your growth is fostered, and your commitment to excellence is celebrated. With hundreds of positions waiting to be filled, Nebraska state government opens doors to fulfilling careers. Explore these opportunities at statejobs.nebraska.gov. Click on the Find a State Job link and take the first step towards your next great career in the Cornhusker State. This is the Good Life, Great Careers podcast, your gateway to a world of career opportunities within Nebraska state government. In each episode, we present a different state public servant as our honored guest, offering them a platform to share their unique journey in public service. Join us as they provide valuable insights, offer tips, and perhaps unveil exciting opportunities within their state agency.
Welcome to the Good Life, Great Careers podcast. My name is Caitlin Betts, and I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition for the state of Nebraska. I'm joined again by co-host Brian Civic, the Director of Workforce Training and Development for the state of Nebraska. Today, our guest is Leslie Remus from the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. Leslie is an attorney and has been with the state for over 3 years. She specifically works with the Division in Children and Family Services within DHHS. Prior to becoming a public servant, Leslie worked as an attorney in private practice. Leslie, thank you for being here today and taking time to join us. We're excited to learn more about you and your career with the state of Nebraska. We thought we'd start off with just a couple of questions. First, if you can tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, and second, maybe share a little bit about what inspired you to pursue a career within state government.
Yeah, so I have been an attorney since about 2017, and I am born and raised in Nebraska. I left for a short period of time for college, ultimately came back, decided this is where we wanted to stay. I always wanted to work within social work and child welfare. I would tell people when I was little that I wanted to be a psychologist or I wanted to be a social worker, and I wanted to do something in that realm. And then I wanted to be an attorney. I read the book My Sister's Keeper, and I'm sure most people are familiar with that storyline, but there is a guardian ad litem that's appointed to the girl who's suing her parents, and I read that book and I thought, that's what I want to do, that's it. I want to go represent kids, and so applied to law school, got in, I went to the University of Nebraska, and then I ended up clerking in a criminal defense firm, which is also very people-centered, and realized that was something I kind of wanted to pursue for a little bit. I ended up in private practice where I bounced around from different areas of the law and ultimately landed in juvenile law. I don't think I'll ever leave at this point, but it's kind of an interesting combination of all of those things I said I wanted to be as a kid, because now I get to kind of play somewhat of a psychologist, analyzing why people are doing the way they're doing the things that they're doing. And then obviously I'm an attorney representing the department, but our ultimate goal is reunification. So we're trying to put families back together and get the best outcome we possibly can for kids. And so at the end of the day, while I'm representing the department, our goal is the family and ultimately the kids. And so it's kind of the best of all of those worlds.
So can you share a little bit with our listeners just what a typical day looks like? It sounds like a very noble profession and service that you're doing, but what is a typical day? Maybe there's not. But you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's noble, so but it's different every day, and that's one of the things that I really like about it is that I typically spend the majority of my day in meetings. When I started at the state, I was a courtroom attorney, and I had also our provided legal support to our policy team as well, and so it was a little bit of a different role than other courtroom attorney positions. But so I'd go to court some days, not every day. Talk to caseworkers, talk to the field, make sure they understood what we were doing, what were the next steps on cases, and then coming back to the office and meeting with leadership or a specific program to talk about what the program can do or can't do. And so it's different every day. There isn't really a typical day. I usually check my calendar on the way here because on my way to work, because I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing at 8 a.m. But I think that's what makes it so fun.
I imagine some of the things that you have to come across working with children and maybe sad situations come up. How do you separate that, and what supports do you have in place for that?
Yeah, so I think one of my skill sets is the compartmentalizing. I don't think about it at home typically. There might be some certain situations that will get me riled up, and I will vent for a while, but for the most part, I think that knowing that there are good people that work for the state of Nebraska that are in the front lines and helping those families, that's ultimately what helps me sleep at night, is that I know that my people are good people and they want what's best for those kids and the families. And so I also have my own kids, and so they keep me pretty busy, and I don't really have a lot of time to think about or dwell on sad situations, although it is hard.
So yeah, and I imagine that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yes.
With your career. But you talked about, the rewarding aspects of it, of being able to help some of these families. Can you talk a little bit more about that, of just like what gets you up in the morning, coming to work, to do what you do? What inspires you? What fills your bucket, I guess?
Yeah. So I think for me, just being an attorney, obviously I do like to argue and I do like to win cases. And so I think for me, that moment where you have a family that comes across our doors and they have on paper what appears to be absolutely no chance whatsoever, and being able to watch our caseworkers work with that family and provide that one-on-one support and see a complete 180 in that family and their ability to provide safe care for their children and also for themselves too. I mean, we're not talking about parents who are just these bad people. They are people with pasts that they didn't wake up in the morning and decide to be in this situation. Something else got them here. And so to see our caseworkers put in the work that leads me to be able to put up a real fight in court and say, we didn't think that we would get here, but here we are, and now we're closing cases, or we're asking for things that the court is hesitant to give us because on paper it looks really bad. And being able to get successful outcomes and fight for orders and things in court that you just didn't think were possible, and being able to leave knowing that the work of our team is what helps that family get back on their feet. That for me is very rewarding, and seeing those emotions in the courtroom and the relief of families that I don't have to do this anymore is really what fills my cup, I guess. Yeah.
So is that, I'm assuming that the ultimate goal and purpose is protection of the kids and make sure that, but then along with that of hopefully reconciliation maybe, or just restoration of the family unit. Is that a correct depiction of or description of what your guys' ultimate goal is?
Yeah. So our first priority is reunification. That's obviously not always possible. And so then if reunification is not possible, we give the family enough time to attempt reunification. And if it's not working, it's just not going to happen, then we will move into other permanency objectives. So the goal, I guess, in short, is permanency. So what are we doing in the long run? Where is that child ending up? And hopefully it's with their parents in a safe home, but that's just not always the case.
Can you talk a little bit about how you coordinate with like the caseworkers and what your role as the lead attorney for that division looks like?
Yeah, so in my prior role, I just started this position as the lead CFS attorney about a little bit over a month ago. And I would say that prior to that, I had one service area, and I would say that service area and I became very close. I think when you're in the trenches with people, you develop those. It's very easy to develop those close relationships and build that trust that's necessary to, okay, I'm telling you no on this thing, but I'm going to go in and fight for you on the other thing. And they know that if I'm telling them no, that this is not a legal strategy we should take, I think we're able to have that trust that, okay, not today, but maybe tomorrow. And so I think it's just being in the trenches with them. Now in my role as the lead attorney, I'm hiring for my old position. And so I would say it's really fun if anyone is interested, but supporting a team of attorneys who are doing the same thing that I was doing and fighting for families and better outcomes for kids.
You mentioned you're hiring for
Yes.
your replacement, I guess.
Yes.
It's a good lead in. I was going to ask, like, what are some areas of need in your area, either directly on your team or the broader team that you work with? Are there openings? Sounds like there's at least one. Any others areas of need?
Yes, we always have openings in legal services. I think people are hesitant to work for the state because of the perception that we don't pay enough. We don't support our employees. But I can tell you that's not been my case, but the case for me. It has definitely been a very positive environment. I have leadership who will fight for our attorneys and ensure that we have what we need to do our jobs and we are not in the Wild West and alone. And so we always have openings. I would say right now on my team, I have 2 openings. I have my former position and then another courtroom attorney in Lancaster County. And I think just the biggest need is experienced attorneys who are willing to do the work and kind of put some of the public perception aside and look at what's actually happening here instead of what people think is happening.
How does working in state government differ than private practice in your experience?
It's a lot more flexible. In private practice, you have billable hours and you have to meet a certain number of billable hours. And so you spend a lot of time documenting what time you're spending on a case. So if I make a phone call, that's 0.06 right there. And if I send an email, that's 0.06, and doing the math to make sure that you're coming out to a number that gets a profit. And here I'm not focused on profit. I'm focused on outcomes and people. And that to me is 10 times better than anything I could get out of private practice.
Is there anything else about working for state government that maybe surprised you coming in from the private practice you didn't expect?
Yes. So when I was in private practice for about 3 years and just kind of trying to figure out what it was that I really wanted to focus on. And in private practice, I would say it's very rare for the area of the state that I was in that you had an attorney who could solely focus on juvenile law. And so it was a little bit of everything. And so here I have the opportunity to specialize. But it was a big leap going from private practice to state government. And I do remember there was a case I had in private practice where one of our courtroom attorneys, and now he's my coworker, which is fun. He came down to the courtroom that I was in, and we actually got to kind of battle it out a little bit. And I remember thinking I didn't know that DHHS had attorneys that came in and fought battles because I was in a rural part of the state, and we just didn't see them very often. We got along pretty well for the most part, but there were a couple times where you needed that extra support in the courtroom. And I remember thinking, I think that might be for me down the road. I want to keep exploring this for a little bit. And so when I heard about the position opening that I originally applied for, I was very hesitant. There was a lot of conversation that took place about, is this the move that I want to make? I don't know what I'm walking into. I have no idea. I don't know anyone that works there. There's no one I can ask for help in making this decision. And I decided it was worth at least an application and an interview maybe. And I think meeting with the attorneys on our team and the people in the field that we directly support was very surprising for me because they are very passionate people. They are people who care about what they're doing. They want to do the right thing. We're all human. We don't always do the right thing, but I think ultimately we all want to do that. And so the biggest surprise for me was just the word government, and the idea of government seems so cold, but in reality it wasn't that. And that has really been what's keeping me around. And probably why I'll stay here forever if they'll let me. Is just the people that we work with, and they're just good people.
You mentioned you didn't know that DHHS had attorneys that did that. DHHS is a large agency and obviously not just Children and Family Services. Do you have the opportunity to work with attorneys in other areas, or do they specialize in their certain divisions, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so there are a team of attorneys assigned to every division of DHHS. So we have a team of attorneys that does social services. So that would include economic assistance, which is technically part of Children and Family Services at the moment, but we treat it a little bit differently as far as legal support. And then that team also handles Medicaid, behavioral health, and developmental disabilities as well. We have an operations team that does support for human resources, for any EOC complaints, ADA complaints. They handle a very wide variety of administrative type issues. And then the Children and Family Services team, which is probably our biggest team. And then our public health team as well, who handles licensure cases, Board of Health, daycares, those kinds of things. So it's a very broad range of specializations, but I think we work together really well, and I know that I can go across the hall if I have a question that public health related. I can walk across the hall and say, hey, what does this mean? Yeah. And someone's there to explain it to me.
You mentioned earlier that you love being in the courtroom. In your current role, do you still get to be in the courtroom?
Very rarely.
Okay.
And I think that has its good and bad. I like to advocate, and so that I think that is something I will miss. But also knowing that I get to kind of instill some of that same passion in other people. And with hiring new people, you get new people in, and the idea that you could hopefully help them become as passionate about juvenile laws as you are is also something that I find really interesting and fun. And just being able to make some more of those, being able to be part of some of those higher level conversations about what are we doing as an agency, is what's the right policy decision. Obviously, my role in that is what does the law allow us to do, or what does the law prevent us from doing? Do we need a law change? Those kinds of conversations are always fun, but just being part of those conversations, having a seat at the table is really special too. And knowing that the meetings that I'm having, although maybe I'm booked all day, those meetings are doing something that will affect our child welfare system as a whole in Nebraska.
So if there's a law that would need to be passed or changed, then have you, or is there a possibility where you would then have to testify before the legislature or before a committee on behalf of that law, or are you more just in the background able to give input on?
So my role is more in the background giving input, okay. But the people who are above me definitely do testify in front of the legislature. We're obviously in the middle of session right now, and so I have seen a lot of my coworkers have to go up there and talk we write statements for the legislature as well, or assist in the writing of those statements. And I've written a few amendments this year to bills, or language changes for current bills, and that's something that's really interesting, is how do we take this idea and provide the experience. Say that again. How do we take this idea, and we are the ones with the experience and the understanding of how this is going to work in practice, and be able to provide that in a way to the legislature that we can really affect actual change that is meaningful.
Did you have the opportunity to do that at all in private practice, or I'm assuming that's more unique to state government?
I didn't know very much about the legislature at all prior to coming to state government. Obviously I took the civics classes in high school and college, and I had an understanding, and you get a better understanding in law school of those things. But I think this position has given me a really unique perspective on state government, and more of a personal stake in the outcome of bills. And so we all have TVs in our office for the purpose of watching session or the things that are going on at the Capitol. And for me, that's been really fun, is to see this all happen in a new light. And what they're doing actually, it's always mattered, but now it really matters.
Yeah, I loved what you said, how you actually get to effectuate change in your role.
Yeah.
Something very unique, I think, to working in government.
I don't think people understand that when they're looking at government jobs, is that I think the perception is that you're just this cog in the wheel, and you're just a warm body, and that's not the case. That's not been what I've seen at all.
You'd mentioned earlier, kind of to that, this perception that maybe some people have from the outside looking in, and coming into state government, maybe especially on being an attorney, and you mentioned the support that like your leadership has, and they, backing you and supporting you, has been your experience. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. Is there, mentorship opportunity, guidance opportunity, learning and development opportunities that you had?
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest strengths that I see in our leadership right now is that they are able to look at a person and figure out their skill sets and maybe what needs development and what that person can just go and run with, and how do we strengthen the skills that we already have that we're already great at, but then also how do we develop some of the skills that are also just as important but maybe just aren't there yet. And I think that's something that's really unique to this position in general, I guess to legal services in general, is that we have the leadership that does support us and that does want us to have good career outcomes. And even if that's not with the state, even if it's something bigger or better out there for us, they want us to pursue that. They want us to be the best that we can be.
Yep.
I'm guessing there's different areas that even within legal services that you can specialize. You mentioned courtroom, you're in the leadership role now. Are there, if people don't want to be in a courtroom facing role, is there anything they can join otherwise than that?
Yes. So so if you're not an attorney, we have support positions. So we hire paralegals, we hire support staff. But if you are an attorney, I would say that the Children and Family Services team we're the ones actually in court, the majority of the cases. However, there are also administrative hearings, and so where the agency makes a decision and the person affected by that decision then appeals it to our hearing office. So it's kind of like court, a little bit different. And then we also have attorney positions that work more with policy and help draft regulations, and they are not so much public facing, and they're not in a courtroom, they're not litigating, but still providing that same legal support.
It's awesome that there's a variety of opportunity.
Yes.
We've covered a lot. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to share? Anything about your department or anything more that we didn't hit on that you would like to share with our listeners?
I think if you're thinking about working in state government, especially in a legal services type role, this is something you should absolutely consider, because it's not what you think it is. It's totally different, and it's a great group of people, and have a lot of fun. It's not boring, and it's not sad. It's not depressing, and there are people there who will celebrate your wins and your losses, and that's something that I think is really special about our team.
Ready for the hot seat? They're not really hot seat, but
Sure.
Ready for? Okay. I already told you what the first one was: coffee or tea.
Coffee.
Yeah.
And even for me, it's espresso. I don't really drink regular coffee.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a reader or not. If you are, do you have a favorite book or series?
I mentioned that I really like My Sister's Keeper. That's probably one of my favorites.
Yep.
I don't get a chance to read as much as I'd like to, but I would say true to my career choice, it tends to be more legal type books that I would read.
What is the weirdest food combination that you enjoy?
Oh man. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I had a really bad craving for fried chicken and chocolate milk.
Interesting.
That's funny.
Do you still enjoy both? Or
No,
is it just one time?
it was a
Okay.
pregnancy craving.
But so together you had to have fried chicken
Yes.
and a glass of chocolate.
And that was
Okay.
just when in the food craving stage of pregnancy. It did not last very long. I don't think it's that weird compared to other
It's
ones
not,
I've heard.
no.
But yeah, I definitely got a lot of jokes about that one.
Would you rather go scuba diving or skydiving?
I don't like water, so probably skydiving, but I would never do it. I'd never do it.
If you could have dinner with anyone, any historical figure, who would you choose?
Does Taylor Swift count?
Sure.
Taylor Swift.
So I was going to ask you, what's your favorite music genre and artist? Is that also Taylor Swift, or would that be?
No, I really like country music. I mean, I do enjoy Taylor Swift, but I think country music is probably one of my favorites. It really just depends on my mood.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of everything, but I stick pretty close to country music.
Okay. What is something interesting about you that people would be surprised to know?
This is my fun fact at every party when they ask you this, but I was named after my great uncle.
Okay.
And I used to really hate that, but now I think it's kind of funny. But his name was Leslie as well.
Okay. That's cool. If you could have any fictional character as a coworker, who would you choose?
Probably Hermione Granger, because she would do a lot of the extra work, go above and beyond. I think you wouldn't have a whole lot of cleaning up to do with her on your team.
All right. Any final advice you'd give to anyone interested in pursuing a legal career within state government?
Don't let people tell you that you can't. I think when I was telling people I was going to go to law school, there was a lot of hesitation from people. Are you sure? Isn't that really hard? And I didn't grow up with the mindset that there was a barrier to anything.
That's
so
cool.
I just, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And it never crossed my mind that it wouldn't happen for me. And I think it makes me sad to see people who think, oh, well, maybe I'm not going to apply because I probably won't get in. You don't know that.
Right.
And so don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Don't let anyone scare you with job market statistics and burnout rates and the depressing facts about being an attorney or going into legal services, because there is something out there for everyone, and you just got to keep looking.
Yeah. I love that mindset. It's a great mindset. And it's great advice. So I think a lot of times people are afraid of failure, and so they don't want to take that step. And like you said, you never know. I mean, so I love the mindset that you have of there is no barrier. Fantastic. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful getting to know you and what you do and what your team does and how they serve the citizens of Nebraska. For our listeners, if you want to check out our great career opportunities throughout the state, please go to statejobs.nebraska.gov and click on the Find a State Job link. While you're there, you can also find links to our Nebraska State Job social media, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We would love to have you follow us and learn even more about the great careers that we have available for you. If you want to learn more about DHHS and their specific careers, you can go to dhhs.ne.gov and click on Careers of Caring. There's also a lot of great content on the Nebraska Department of Administrative Services YouTube channel, including this podcast and all the past episodes. So make sure that you search for us there and hit that subscribe button so that you're notified when future podcasts drop. On behalf of our guest, Leslie, my co-host, Caitlin, and myself, I want to thank you for tuning in and learning more about the great careers here in Nebraska.